Welcome to The Speechy Show. Being a speech-language pathologist often means having too much work and not enough planning time. To beat the overwhelm, we're bringing you the tricks and tools that will make your job a little bit easier. Hello everybody, welcome to The Speechy Show. I am your host, Carrie Clark from speechandlanguagekids.com, and I am here today with Lauren from slplaurendibiase.com. Welcome to the show again, and thank you for coming on today, Lauren.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, let's make sure our volume's up here. So we are talking today about how to work on social skills in a mixed group. So this would be where you have students that are working on all different skills and one or more of your students are working on social skills, which can be challenging when you also need to work on that R and that fluency kid over there. So we're gonna share some tips today on how you can make that group therapy run smoothly. If you're new to the show, I am Carrie Clark. I run speechandlanguagekids.com, and each week we do this Speechy show. I have a new guest on each week. We talk about one topic, and we share some tips, we do some resources, and then we're going to do a giveaway here at the end. So stay tuned if you're with us on Facebook Live. If you are on Facebook Live, go ahead and chime in with where you're located today. We'd love to see where you're joining us from. And while they're doing that, Lauren, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Lauren DiBiase. I live on Long Island, but I'm working currently in Queens for the New York City Department of Education. I work for District 75, which is a special ed district, mostly with 611 kids, also some 1211 kids. So most of my caseload has autism. But from year to year, it really differs. Last year I had lower functioning students. This year I have some higher functioning students. So I've kind of spent the first 2 months reorganizing my materials and figuring out what's going to work this year that I didn't use last year.
Yeah,
So.
I feel like that's pretty common where you feel like you have a handle on things and then your caseload turns over and all of a sudden you got something entirely different.
Exactly. Like when you have a bunch of kids graduate, you never really know what population's coming in. And I work with 6 other SLPs, so every year we kind of swap our caseloads a little bit, so you could have anyone or anything.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we're talking today about what to do when you have those students working on social skills mixed into groups with some of your other students. So we're going to jump right in with our tips. If you guys have any questions as we go along, please go ahead and put those into the comments, and we will take those as we go. So our first tip is to make sure that each of the students know each other's names. I love this one because it seems so basic, but it is so powerful. So talk about how you use this in your sessions.
Right. So I think it's really easy to assume that the students, especially the ones who've been in class with one another for years, that they know each other's names, or even if they've had the same teacher for 2 years in a row. But a lot of the times it's just not the case. They recognize their faces, but they don't actually know their names. So I have a couple of different ways that I target this in a mixed group for students who are super verbal. That might also be groups with kids who are not verbal at all. So on my very first session, we make fun name tags, just like with simple, sticky notes, and then we get a bunch of fun markers. So everyone makes a name tag. And for students who are nonverbal, I also make a point board. So I take a picture with photo permission of all of my students, their faces. Usually it's 3 or 4 students in a group. Sometimes it's more. And I put it on a piece of paper and I laminate it. So all year they can point to their peers' faces rather than say their names. I also have a magic wand. It looks like it's right out of Frozen. It has a snowflake. It has a ribbon. And we play a fun game where I spin the wand. I point to somebody. And my verbal students will name the person, and my nonverbal students will have to either point to the person or point to their picture on the board. And I like that because it's not really calling out one student. Everybody in unison has to name or point to that student. So even if one student isn't sure, they're kind of getting it modeled by their peers, which is always nice. A peer model I like better than a teacher model. I also have... I don't know if everyone's familiar with this. Is this? Yeah. This is a little Mac, as opposed to a Big Mac. It's made by AbleNet. It's just a single button AAC device, but it's really nice because you can program it as you go. It only takes a few seconds. So let's see if this can work because once I'm on camera, nothing works.
Yeah, right?
It's Lauren.
Okay, so I don't know if you caught that, but it said, hi, my name is Lauren. Let me do it again.
Hi, my name is Lauren.
Yes? No?
Yeah, got that.
Yeah. So when it's yours, we go around the room. Everybody says, for your verbal students, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I have this programmed in advance for my students who are nonverbal, which is nice. If you have a speech assistant, we don't use them in New York, but I know a lot of other states do. Or if you push into the class and you have a paraprofessional, they could model it for the student, or you could do a little bit of maybe like light hand over hands from underneath. I don't get any kickback for this, but you can buy these for like maybe $50 on AbleNet's website or on Amazon. So if you get like money every year, it's a good thing to invest in.
Absolutely. I love those.
So just my first tip is make sure everybody knows their name. I like to do a greeting song too, like, hello, everybody. Something simple, and then when you say the student's name, they can point to themselves. So, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I do a lot of greeting stuff because I think we overlook that sometimes, where our students they may be verbal, but they may not actually know how to introduce themselves to a new friend. So, doing the hello, my name is, like, that seems very simple, but it's so simple we overlook it sometimes and they miss out on that. Connie says, wonderful idea. She's liking that too. Okay, so our next tip then is that the activity actually starts before the activity. So tell us about that.
Right. So sometimes our group sessions are only a half an hour, and by the time you get all your students from their classrooms and bring them to your room, 5 minutes is gone. So every second counts. So any kind of setup, because in real life you don't have time to set up before the session starts. You just don't. So any kind of setup, I like to use it to target my social skills. So if even as simple as you're handing out worksheets, you're going to have your one student, you give them a worksheet, give this to Johnny. Okay, so now they have to look around, they have to find Johnny, and they have to say, here, Johnny. Or again, for a lower student, you might have a picture card, a picture sequence from Boardmaker that says, here, friend, and they can point to it. For your higher students, you can give them multi-step directions. Maybe give them 4 worksheets and say, oh, can you give this to Maria, Brandon, Stephanie, and Joe? And they have to try to, follow those 4 instructions. Mm-hmm. For students who maybe you're doing a cooking activity, which I really like to do, something as simple as, do they know to put a plate in front of everybody? I might have a picture of a plate that I've, printed out and laminated and taped to the desk, and that way your student knows exactly where to put the plate. Social skills is more than just communicating. You have to know how to move around and interact with people in a social setting. It is more than communication. So I'll have things like that. I have my students practice either they might be signing thank you, they might be pointing to a picture symbol of thank you anytime somebody hands something to them. My students who are a little bit more verbal might be saying, oh, thanks for the cup, thanks for the straw. Just, targeting if their goal is, let's say that dreaded S sound. We're going to say thank you so much, anywhere that you can fit it in, but making it as natural as possible. Just trying to differentiate for each student.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's huge because, everything that we do in the schools happens in a social context. And so everything that you're doing, you have an opportunity to help those students understand how language and body language and nonverbal language, how all of that plays into a social interaction. So I think that's great to just be focusing on those in-between moments where you're not actually doing a speech activity.
Right, same for cleanup. Someone has to be in charge of collecting those worksheets at the end of the session, has to be responsible for collecting the pencils. Somebody maybe needs to, turn off the light at the end. Everybody can have something differentiated to them. A lower student, you might tell them, oh, turn off the light, and you hold up a visual of the light switch. But for somebody who's higher functioning, you might tell them, oh, can you tell all your friends it's time to go? Tell them to stand up and to push their chairs in.
Yeah. Or can you go ask so-and-so to turn out the light?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I even, like you said, walking your students down to the speech room takes 5 minutes. That's a great time to be working on social skills and interactions, and social norms even of, okay, well, we're walking down the hall and someone's walking straight for me. Do I plow right through them, or is there an alternative?
Exactly. Sometimes I'll even think about which of my students are a little bit lower. I'll try to pick them up first, and that way when we get to the next student's classroom, we get to work on knocking on the door, waiting to hear someone say to come in. How do you actually enter a room and tell somebody without interrupting what's going on? So yeah, even when you're picking up students, there's ways to subtly get those goals targeted.
Absolutely. I love that. All right, if you guys have any questions or any comments, feedback, go ahead and type that in the comments section. Our next one is one of my favorite things to do in speech therapy, and I guess this is my mischievous side, but it's the sabotage. Tell me how...
I'm like, oh, Miss Lauren is so old, she can't hear well, or if there's another teacher in the room or assistant, anybody else, it's easy to pretend to be distracted. You ask one of your students a question, and then you turn a little bit, act as though you didn't hear them. And when they're done, you can be like, oh, like I didn't hear, like, Lindsay, do you mind? I'm sorry. Like, do you mind just asking him again while I'm doing this? And then, you see, maybe they need a verbal model of, can you tell me again? Maybe you're going to, in advance, have your little Mac or your Big Mac program to say, please tell me again, say it again. And we don't always want to use the same sentence. You want to change it so it's a little bit more natural. But it's nice because then it can target asking questions. It can target how do you get your friend's attention. I remember in one of my very first supervisor observations, I had my student get their classmates' attention by kind of saying their name too loudly. And my supervisor was like, it'd be a little more natural having them tap them on the shoulder. So you think about how do you get somebody's attention? So you can have them tap them on the shoulder and then ask for it. Are they making eye contact? The other student, maybe they have a goal of recalling. Did they recall what their answer was? Like, did they recall what they just answered? So that's how we target. I like to pretend to be busy, or, maybe I'm typing on my computer, nothing. Sabotage is a really nice, it just seems very normal. It doesn't seem weird. Like, it's real life. People are distracted and they're not always listening. And instead of putting pressure on, like, oh, did you hear him? Tell me what Johnny said. It kind of like takes the pressure off them because, oh, Miss Lauren really didn't hear. Let me help her out, the kind of helper.
Yeah. Well, I think this is key because, I joke about being mischievous about it, but, communication breakdown happens for all of us. And it's going to happen a lot more for our students with speech problems and our students with social problems. And so providing opportunities for them to practice correcting and repairing communication breakdowns is huge. I mean, that's probably what they're going to be doing more than anything,
And if we don't help and support them in this, how are they ever going to advocate for themselves? How are they going to be able to tell the person at McDonald's, like, this is not what I ordered? Or, how are they going to be able to tell somebody, oh, I asked you for a size 7 shoe and you brought me a size 5, instead of just taking the box and, like, walking away with it and not being the right thing. So, yeah, it's important. Important.
Or, I didn't hear you, or I didn't understand you. They're probably going to have some of those kinds of breakdowns too. And so if we can model, oh, I didn't hear you, or I was distracted, or, using that language as us, then that makes it very okay for them to say, I didn't understand either. So it's just nice all around.
Yeah. And that's a goal that any of our student with any kind of language disorder is going to need support, be it the lowest student or the highest student. All of our students need to self-advocate for themselves as they get older.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I know a lot of adults that can use that as well. I was on the phone with tech support for a company, and the woman had a very thick accent, and I had to, multiple times I had to say, I didn't understand that. Can you please say that a different way? Can you use some different words? And I felt my speech therapy hat going on, but I mean, we need that as adults too.
Yeah, we never stop needing it, ever. Ever. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do some giveaways here in just a few minutes. So if you are watching with us on Facebook Live, stay tuned. Don't feel shy. Go ahead and ask your questions on the Facebook Live as well. We're going to move on to our fourth tip. So our fourth tip is talking about the likes and dislikes of everyone in the room. So tell us how you use this in your therapy sessions.
Okay, so for my lower students, I usually find out their interests first via either a parent survey or I ask teachers who worked with them last year. That way I'm going in the first few weeks and I already know what they like or what they don't like. That way I can make a choice board for them. I use usually board maker with some symbols, things they like, things that they don't like. For my verbal students or my literate students, I might have the words written rather than the pictures. And I try to think about when I get together with my friends or even people who I've never met before, what do we usually talk about? And it's usually either things that either really interest us or something like that we didn't like a TV show that people like but we didn't seem to like. So talking about likes and dislikes and respecting that everyone has a different perspective is important. So or if you have a whiteboard in your room, or even if you don't, I like to take pictures of all of my students making happy faces and then making either angry faces or sad faces. And you might need your teacher's help with this because you don't have the students all day. And if you want it to be natural for some students who can't change their facial expressions like on command, the teacher can take the picture. So then I get a picture of like a happy face and an unhappy face, and I put it on like a chart. So piece of paper, line down the middle, happy and sad on either side. And then we go around the room for my students who like something, like we made Frankenstein milkshakes this week. Most students liked it. And we ask, did you like it or did you not like it? And they have to point the nonverbal ones to either their happy face or the unhappy face. And sometimes they're not sure, but if they're like taking a bite and they're making this grotesque face, like I snap a picture really fast, and that way they have a visual to match it to. And the picture, I send them home to the parents because the parents think it's hysterical. I see the face like, you're like, oh, you're saying you like it, but let's check this face again. Maybe you didn't like it so much. But I have the students at the ones who are verbal or not verbal. I'll tell them like, okay, ask so-and-so, did you like it? Maybe we're going to use a Big Mac again. Maybe it's going to be a sentence strip from board maker symbols. And then the other person has to answer. So it's, are you working on descriptive language with the student? They have to say, I liked it. It was delicious. It was sweet. It was soft, whatever it was. Oh, you didn't like it? Why? It was gross. So that's a great way to get descriptive language in. While your nonverbal students might just be pointing to the happy face or the sad face to say whether or not they liked it. I know on the whiteboard, I'm not super technologically savvy, but there's a way to actually drag faces. So you could have like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And then each student can come up and they can drag their own, either the happy or the sad face, because it's going to be pre-programmed, to the correct side. It's a little bit more hands-on, which is nice. Or sometimes I'll have them do, Maria will come up, okay, Maria, look at Benny. Does he look happy or does he look unhappy? And she'll have to pick the face and drag it over. So it's a little bit more interactive. The students who are verbal can drag it over, but they can also say, oh, he liked it. He didn't like it. That way you're always, differentiating. I just remember you never want to ask a student a question and they don't have a means to answer it. Like I always try to keep that in the back of my head,
Absolutely. The thing I love about all of these strategies is they're so natural. You're building these into activities that are very normal, very reasonable things for, you might ask your friend if they liked something. That's something that can come up in other situations, as opposed to trying to force a board game where there's some social prompt, like pretend like this thing is happening and now interact or react to it. So I love that these are just building it into the natural communication that's happening in your sessions.
Definitely. That's one of the other reasons I love to use like food, because you either have a strong like or a strong dislike typically. It's not, you don't have to think about it. It's pretty spontaneous.
Absolutely. All right. We have one last tip to share today, and then we're going to do some resources and giveaways. So let's talk about complimenting. How do you use complimenting in your sessions?
I use it in a lot of ways. Again, I was trying to think about when I have to meet somebody new and I have to, interact with them, which can be difficult. What is a good like icebreaker? And it's usually to compliment somebody, like, oh, I love your shoes. Where did you get them? And a conversation ensues. So I try to make it natural. Again, I think about how can I have my students compliment others, but not have it be so random, have it be about something that they did. So with these cooking activities, I keep going back to it because I really do at least like 2 a week. And each student is assigned a job. So I try to have like a cheat sheet for my students who can read. So maybe like 5 or 6 compliments, like, oh, you stirred that really well. Oh, you passed out the napkins very politely. Things that actually apply to what we're doing. And then the student can either read it, or with my nonverbal students, I make a copy of, because I have visual sentence strips for all of the directions, I have them point to it, like, oh, you did a good job stirring. Just so that they can kind of look, match the action to the picture and give a compliment that actually matters to the student. So it gives a little bit of confidence, and the student also gets pride in what they're doing, but the other student gets to practice complimenting. Again, I know I keep talking about it, but I really do love this thing. I use it a lot, because if I have somebody with me, I can be running the session, and my assistant or my buddy could be programming it, anticipating what I'm going to need it to say. I also like to, it's important not to just practice compliments. For some of our students who are maybe higher functioning, but maybe have emotional disturbances or are higher on maybe Asperger's, you have to give them a demonstration of what the opposite of complimenting is too. And I never do this with actual students. I always make sure I do it with another adult. That way no one feels like they're being picked on. But I'll make it funny. If my assistant or my other coworker is there, I might say, like, oh, like, everyone watch, I'm going to say something called an insult, and I don't mean it to be, like, I'm not being mean on purpose, but it could hurt my friend's feelings. Let's role play and watch. And I'll say something like, oh, Melissa, I don't really like your shirt today. And she'll respond like, oh, like, that hurts my feelings. So we'll just role play it for the students, but I don't actually have them do it, because it could be too sensitive. It's too sensitive of a topic, but it's also something that we need to expose them to so that they know what not to do. If we don't do that, then how can we discipline someone or have somebody get in trouble for something that we never really taught them not to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's huge, because our students with social impairments don't know the difference. They're just saying what comes to their head, and they don't think about the way it looks from the other side. So yeah, I think that's huge.
Right. So that's how we do it to model kind of insult. And with compliments, I'll either have the sentences written out or the pictures from board makers so that they can point. And sometimes at the very end of the session, that's how we'll end. We're going to say our compliments, and then we're going to sing our goodbye song. So I'll start, and I'll be like, oh, and I'll have a picture of maybe shoes. And I'll say, oh, Jordan, I really like your shoes. And then I'll hand Jordan like a your turn, and he'll know it's his turn to do a compliment. Or if it's verbal, I'll just say, okay, Jordan, I really like your shoes. And then more casually, could you give someone else a compliment? Who do you want to compliment? Or if I have a student who's targeting, will label, maybe I want to label their classmates, receptively. Oh, Jordan, can you give a compliment to Benny? That way they're labeling, without actually saying the name. They'll be able to receptively identify their classmates.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that. All right, so those are our 5 tips that we have today for working those social skills into your group settings. You have some resources to share with us, don't you?
I do. I wanted to talk about, when I first started a few years ago, I realized there's not really so much for social skills on the internet. It wasn't really not talked about in many, it wasn't really mentioned much in my grad school program. So I want to talk about this. I'm actually going to be giving it away today. It's probably going to be backwards because I never can figure out how to. Is it backwards?
I think it is on Facebook, but it'll flip when we do the edits.
Yeah, okay. It's called Social Skills for Super Sleuths, and I think it's really a fun way. Every student, you can print out like a magnifying glass for your student, and then it has compliments or insults, and they have to seek out the compliments with the magnifying glass. There's little synopsises, and then there's questions like, what should Ava do and say? What should Sophia do and say? That way they have to take the perspective of another student and realize what is the socially appropriate response. Then I have, for some lower students, just circle the picture of sad, circle the picture of happy. That way you might give this to one student, but then you might give this other page to a different student where they have to independently identify the emotion and write it down. So yeah, that's what I'm recommending.
And where can people find that one?
That's in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. My Teachers Pay Teachers store name is just Lauren DiBiase. It'll be right there on the very first page. There's a lot of really great resources also just from other SLP sellers on Teachers Pay Teachers. So even if you just type into the search social skills and then you pick your grade range on the side, you'll see there's a lot of really great resources on that website for mixed groups as well.
Perfect. All right. Do you have any other resources you wanted to share?
I really like to use, again, I know I'm talking about Boardmaker, just to make your own resources. There's a 1-month free trial, so that way you can see if you like it or not. And they just made Boardmaker online, so it's not a CD-ROM anymore.
I love it.
I definitely recommend that for your own resources. And I've noticed recently a lot more videos are showing up on YouTube that have actual children that are role-playing scenes. So you have to check out first if YouTube is blocked or not on your school Wi-Fi. I know some schools it is, some it's not. And then someone recently mentioned to me that there's, oh my gosh, I can't think of it now, but when I do think of it, I'll post it in the comments below.
Perfect.
It's a YouTube specifically for schools. So it's already been screened for anything inappropriate. I can't think of...
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. If you guys know what it is, type it in the comments.
I can't think of what it is, but it's, you know how like when you want to show your students something, you kind of like quickly tilt the computer? Just
you're like, is this okay?
I don't remember if it's like, I don't want to make something up, but whatever it is, it's a great resource.
All right.
We'll figure it out and then I'll write it.
Perfect. Okay, well, we're going to do 2 giveaways right now. If you're watching with us on Facebook Live, the first giveaway is going to be the Social Skills for Super Sleuths packet that Lauren has. That will be the first giveaway. The second giveaway will be 2 free months in the Speech Therapy Solution, which is my membership with CEUs. We've got evidence-based practice videos for training. We are answering your questions every day. We have worksheets. I can't even remember. We have so much stuff. So the second winner of the giveaway here in just a moment is going to win 2 free months in that. So I'm going to ask a question. You get to chime in. The first 2 people to answer will win. All right, here's the question. What is your favorite trick that we shared here today? Maybe I should reread the tricks in case somebody missed some of them. This is also serving as our recap. Okay, so the first one we did was knowing each other's names. We talked about using those in-between moments to work on social skills. We talked about mishearing and sabotage. We talked about talking about the likes and dislikes of all the students, and we talked about complimenting. So the first 2 people to chime in with their responses will win. All right, Blake Brown says, learning the student names while you're getting ready for the activity. Perfect. All right, Blake is gonna win the Super Sleuths product, and how can she contact you for that?
So I will type my email. It's Lauren DiBiase, SLP. But I'll type it in, and that way she can email me.
Perfect. Congratulations, Blake. And Madeline Price says sabotage. All right, Madeline, you're going to win 2 free months in the Speech Therapy Solution. I can't remember if you are already a member or not. I know I recognize your name. So if you are already a member, we'll add 2 months to your current subscription, or we'll get you set up with a new one, and those first 2 months will be on us. All right. Thank you all for chiming in. We had quite a few responses there. All right, thanks for joining us today. We will see you in a couple weeks on the Speechy Show. We're not having one next week because I'm going on a train trip with my boys. We'll see how that goes. But we will catch you in a couple weeks with a new Speechy Show. And in the meantime, Lauren, where can they find more about you and all the cool stuff that you've created?
So I have a blog where I've been posting lesson plans for these coaching activities. It's laurendibiaseslp.com. I'm Teachers Pay Teachers. My name is just Lauren DiBiase. Or you could head to my Facebook page or my Instagram, which is Lauren DiBiase SLP also.
Perfect. And will you spell DiBiase for everyone?
DiBiase.
Perfect. And Lauren, I'll have you post some links in the comments of the Facebook when we get done so that people can find those things. And don't forget to check on the Speech Therapy Solution over at speechandlanguagekids.com/join. We have a webinar in 2 days for ASHA CEU. We're going to be talking about using the core word approach for AAC. So head on over there and you can learn all about the membership. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us today on The Speechy Show. We hope today's tips have helped you feel a little less stressed and a little more confident about your work. If you're looking for more stress busters and confidence boosters, we'd love to have you join us in the Speech Therapy Solution, where you'll get access to a huge library of premium training videos and another library of print and go therapy materials. You can also get help with your tough cases by joining Carrie on the weekly Q&A calls or by posting in the exclusive Facebook group. Plus, group members can join us for a monthly webinar that can be used for continuing education credit. Head on over to speechandlanguagekids.com/join to check out all the amazing benefits of the Speech Therapy Solution membership. Bye for now.